नमस्कार, आदाब, सत श्री अकाल, केम छो? मैं करण मेहता आप सभी का स्वागत करता हूं लेजेंड्स ऑफ डिजाइन के एक और नए एपिसोड में। लेजेंड्स ऑफ डिजाइन एक ऐसा शो है जो हमारे देश के दिग्गज आर्किटेक्ट्स की जिंदगी को सेलिब्रेट करता है। दोस्तों, हमारे आज के जो गेस्ट हैं उनको मैं इस मंच पे बुलाऊं उसके पहले मैं आप लोगों के सामने गीता का एक श्लोक पढ़ना चाहूंगा। कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन। गीता के इस श्लोक में श्री कृष्ण भगवान अर्जुन को यह कहते हैं कि तुम्हारा दायित्व है कर्म करते रहना, ना कि फल की चिंता करना। ठीक इसी श्लोक को दिल में रखते हुए हमारे आज के गेस्ट ने करीबन 50 साल पहले भारत की धरती पर अपने कदम रखे। उनका मकसद कभी भी पैसा या कभी भी शोहरत कमाना नहीं था, बल्कि उनका मकसद था अपने काम के जरिए ह्यूमैनिटी को सर्व करना। और बस इसी चाह को दिल में रखते हुए वो आगे बढ़ते गए और रास्ते अपने आप खुलते गए। There is one interesting story which I should share with you all. When I went to his office for the first time, I saw two flags on his desk. One was of a country that gave him birth and another was of a country that gave him purpose. दोस्तों, उस दिन जब मैंने उनके डेस्क पे इंडिया का फ्लैग देखा, उसी दिन मैं समझ गया कि ये इंडिया से और हमारे देश के लोगों से कितना प्यार करते हैं। उनका जन्म भले ही परदेश में हुआ हो, लेकिन दिल से वो 100% हिंदुस्तानी है। तो आइए देखते हैं हमारे आज के गेस्ट की एक छोटी सी झलक।
Professor Benninger came first time in 1968 when he was still at Harvard University. He was a tenured professor, and he came in 1971 permanently. What great teachers he could have had who told young man, if you live in America, all that you're going to be a teacher in Harvard and you will retire like the way we are retiring in a few years from now. They said, if you really want to make a difference, go to India. He wasn't looking for money. He wasn't looking for name or fame. He was just doing a service. He's 81. Sometimes he surprises us with all these things. He's still able to work. He has that zest for life, I think, which only sends a message to a lot of younger generations and to my generation that life doesn't get over at 60. In fact, it's a whole new life which begins at 60, which truly means that like he is born to be an architect.
So ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for a man on a mission to serve the humanity through his knowledge. May I now call upon the living legend, architect Christopher Charles Benninger. Christopher sir, I thank you from the bottom of my heart to come here with us on the show Legends of Design.
Well, I'm honored to be here.
Sir, I can see, a totally Indian person in you. The topi that you're wearing, the shawl, the kurta pajama. What makes you love this country so unapologetically?
I think I love this country mainly because of the people and because of the different cultures which overlap and interact together. It's a place unique in the world. It's a place of freedom. It's a place of expression, creativity, and I think there's no place like India.
Okay, great. Sir, where did you get this cap?
You may not know, I'm not bald because I'm 81. I'm bald because I went to Tirupati.
Tirupati?
Yes, and I wanted to do a darshan at Tirupati for Balaji, and so I went there and my head was shaved, and then I thought, let me get this Himachal Pradesh cap to cover my tuklu. And then this comes from Saurashtra. I spent my early life in Gujarat. In fact, I gave a lecture in Ahmedabad about 2 days ago. And so this is the wonderful thing about India. You get something from the mountains, which is beautiful, something from Gujarat, and everything comes together in what we dress. We can all mix and match and dress as we like.
Amazing. This shows that Sir loves India so much. He actually knows everything about this country. Of course, and why not? He's been here for more than 50 years. So, yes.
But I'll tell you one more thing. Many people don't know I've applied for Indian citizenship,
Okay.
and I expect to get that within the next 1 month.
Wow. But why so late, sir? I mean, you could have.
Actually, it's much more difficult to become an Indian than to become an American.
Is it?
Oh, much, much more. We have no green card system here. There's no open sort of door for people to become Indians now.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So, we have these young kids over here. I'm sure you were also at one point of time their age. We would like to know, how was your childhood? Where were you born? How were you as a kid? Where did you study? Could you please share it?
okay, that's an interesting story. I think where you grow up when you're a child, that's the template of your life. If you have a good template, you're set to rise. And if you have a difficult template, life becomes difficult. Well, my father was a university professor, and I grew up in university towns. University towns are ideal towns. They're very small. In my school, 60% of the students' parents were teaching in the university, had PhDs, et cetera. So I grew up in Gainesville, Florida, which is a beautiful green city, and I think it was really wonderful. But some things happened when I was about 12 years old. My father said, listen, you may be the son of a university professor, but you should get a job. And I said, 12 years old, a job? He said, no, I know the owner of the newspaper here. And I've told him you can deliver newspapers. And he said, that's great, because in our neighborhood, the boy who delivered newspapers just quit. So my first job was at age 12, and I was delivering newspapers to 128 houses, small bungalows in my neighborhood. And it taught me entrepreneurship, saving, the joy of spending, being a consumer at a very young age. So I think that was a highlight of my youth. And I grew up in a beautiful, beautiful city.
First job at an age of 12 years, throwing newspapers to 125 houses every morning. So, was there a need to find a job for you, or that was just for a sense of getting some independence?
My father wanted me to learn how to be independent. He wanted me to respect work, and he wanted me to be one of the normal people of my country. Other newspaper boys came from very poor families. So it introduced me to a wide variety of kids and different economic groups, and there was no need whatsoever financially.
So moving forward, how were you as a student, and how did architecture happen?
Okay, first of all, I was a terrible student.
Okay.
I'm revealing something for the first time. I flunked 7th standard. But I flunked 7th standard when my father was a visiting professor in another city. So when I came back, I just repeated that 7th standard, and nobody in my class knew that I had already done 7th standard.
Okay.
Yeah? So I was a very poor student, very, very poor, never read a book, never liked to read, but I loved painting and art. And then when I was about 16 years old, my aunt gave me a book called The Natural House by Frank Lloyd Wright. The first book I ever read, cover to cover. After Christmas lunch, I went to my room, started reading, and I finished reading that book at 3 o'clock in the morning. I walked out of the house, looked at the stars in the sky, and said, I'm going to be an architect.
Okay.
So
That was your moment where you
it was a very important moment in my life, yeah.
Okay. So then, how were your college days? I'm aware that you were also a professor at the Harvard University.
See, I had many college days then. I first went to a state university, the University of Florida, where I had very devoted teachers. I mean, they were professional teachers. Only one of them was a good architect building, but they were good teachers. And then I went to Harvard, where I had the famous architect Jose Luis Sert. Jose Luis Sert started the first urban design course in the world. He was a great architect, and I also worked in his studio. And then later I went to MIT and studied planning. Kevin Lynch was a very well-known name. Everybody knows it today. And so I had great teachers, and I had people who were role models, and I could learn from them. What did they do in their lives? All of them, social issues were important for all of them. Humanitarian causes were important for them. And they were also great students. So I learned how to be a reader, a student, to be focused on things, and also to have an idea about humanity. Karan, one thing I've learned, that in life there's only one kind of good luck. And that good luck is to have good teachers.
Absolutely. As rightly said by sir, जिंदगी में कामयाब होने के लिए गुरुओं का मार्गदर्शन काफी जरूरी है. Sir, there is no doubt that Barbara Ward was one of the most influential people in the history of the world. She was an economist, writer, policy advisor, and a very influential person and an early advocate of sustainable development. But when and how did your paths cross with her?
See, Karan, in life, romance and love play a very important role. My mother's sister was the life partner of a man called Adlai Stevenson. Adlai Stevenson ran for president twice and lost, but under Kennedy became the United States ambassador to the United Nations. So I used to stay in the embassy in the top floor of the Waldorf Astoria in New York City, and other guests included people like Barbara Ward. So here I am, a bacha, about 21 years old, staying with the ambassador, and she wants to know, who are you? And I had done a project in South America, low-cost housing for the poor. So when I was at Harvard, she called me for a lunch, and she said, you know, you're one of the few architects interested in self-help housing, poverty, etc. Why don't you come with me to the Delos Symposium in Greece? And so I went there, and an event took place there. There was a famous historian called Arnold Toynbee. We went to Samothrace Island, where the winged victory of Samothrace comes from, and there was a hillock, and he said, could you take Veronica, my wife, and we want to walk, he was 86 years old, to the top of that hill, because I think there's an old Crusader fort there. So we climbed up, we came to the top of the hill, and he was excited because the fort was actually there. But I looked to the east over Turkey, and I said, excuse me, sir, there's a huge storm coming. The sky is black, and this storm will come here, and this hillock we walked up easily, it's about 300 feet high, will become mud, and we'll all slip and fall down. And he looked at me and laughed and said, listen, that's not a storm cloud, that's Asia. Asia is heat and dust, and maybe someday you'll go there. So that's how I was introduced to Asia, and I never forget that story because I've lived here for the rest of my life.
Okay.
See, let me add about Barbara Ward, who I met at Adlai Stevenson's. She was a person who wrote a book called India and the West, and she wanted to tell the West what we can learn from India. She was a person who wrote a book called Only One Earth. She was the person who organized the first environmental conference in Stockholm, which we keep hearing about every time there's an environmental conference. They say 1972, Stockholm, but they don't know Barbara Ward organized the very first environmental conference where all the nations were invited. So she was a critical person in making the world aware of the environment. And I think that should be important. It's affected my life and my architecture.
Okay. Okay. So what made you leave US? You had a stable job there. You were a professor at the Harvard University. And what made you leave the West and come to India?
This happened in a couple of phases. Now, when I was a student at MIT doing my PhD, I applied for a Fulbright fellowship to come to Bangladesh, at that time East Pakistan. Why would I do that? My roommate in college was Mir Mubashir Ali, a Bangladeshi. So my original intent was to go to Dhaka.
Okay.
So in life, sometimes you want to do A and you wind up doing B, right? So I got the Fulbright fellowship, but then the Muktabani started a revolution against Pakistan. And the US government who was giving the grant said, you can't go there, it's too dangerous now. So then I talked to my professors, and many of them had worked for Le Corbusier in Paris. So they said, there's this lovely man in a place called Ahmedabad called Balkrishna Doshi. Instead of going there to Dhaka, why don't you go to Ahmedabad? So almost by a fluke, I changed my mind and I came to India, which was the greatest thing that ever happened. I can't imagine myself living in Dhaka for the last 55 years, even though I have great friends there and I love Dhaka. But India is a country full of opportunities. It's a place of joy, and I'm very happy I came here.
Great. Sir, how were your initial days in India? You mentioned about not going to Dhaka and reaching Ahmedabad. So could you please share those memories with us?
Well, let me tell you one thing. India was a different country then. When I landed in Ahmedabad, I stayed in a lodge and I took a bicycle rickshaw to Doshi's house.
Okay.
And Doshi said, go stay in the hostel with all the other boys. And I had never had vegetarian food before. And the masalas and the dals and everything were very difficult for me. But all of the guys there were so helpful. They were like brothers to me, which is not the way it is in America. Everybody made it a big family. And I think I just integrated right into the country in the first 2 or 3 weeks, living in a hostel.
So, were you also one of the initial founding members of CEPT, if I'm not wrong?
Well, I was in the sense that Doshi and Bernard Cohn and a few other people started the School of Architecture. But when I came as a Fulbright fellow, I made a proposal, hey, we need a school of planning here, urban planning. So Doshi said, make a proposal and let's send it to the state government, the central government, the Ford Foundation. So that proposal went and then I was invited, it cleared, and I was invited to come back and start that school when I was 28 years old. Okay. And my professors at Harvard and MIT all said, get out of here. I was teaching at Harvard, working on a PhD at MIT, and I thought, my father was very upset because he wanted me to get a PhD. He was thrilled that his son is teaching at Harvard. But my teacher said, you're 28 and you're starting a new institution at age 28. You'll never be 28 again. Nobody will ever ask you to start a new institute again. Go to India and start this institute. So that was a very big moment in my life.
Okay. And so moving ahead, what were your initial projects in India?
You see, my first projects, I can use the word I stumbled across them. There was a student of architecture at what is now CEPT, whose father was running the SOS Children's Villages in India. And they wanted to build 2 new SOS Children's Villages, one at Bhuwana outside of Delhi and the other one in Calcutta. Now, these were unique projects where orphans would live in villages and you get a chance to design a model village. So if the village I designed it at Bhuwana outside of Delhi is a hierarchy of houses with courtyards, neighborhoods with courtyards, and then a big central courtyard. And it was very exciting. And then I did another one in Calcutta, which is in Salt Lake. And these are 2 very large social work projects. They sort of anchored me into social work in the beginning. I did a free project in Baroda for a man called Senate by Mehta. I did a housing project in a slum for him. Now I'm mentioning this project because it was social work. Later, when I came back in 1971 to start the School of Planning, the war between Pakistan took place in 71. And Senate Bai, as I would call him, joined the Congress Party after the war was on. And he became, guess what? The Minister of Housing. Guess what? Which architect did he know who had done free work for him? So I think that was a good look on my part, that I had done free work for a man who became Minister of Housing, and therefore he asked me to do what turned out to be the very first economically weaker section housing project in India for HUDCO.
For HUDCO?
For HUDCO, and I did that in Jamnagar.
Okay, great.
Now, another very interesting project, since I had built the economically weaker section housing project in Jamnagar, the World Bank had a problem in Chennai, in Madras at that time. It was called Madras. They had a big housing project which was stumbling. They were building RCC, very expensive houses, and it was supposed to be for the poor. So they came to HUDCO, Housing and Urban Development Corporation, and they said, we want to fund you and fund housing in India through HUDCO. Can you show us a project? Well, the only project they had at that time was under construction in Jamnagar. So suddenly these guys from the World Bank come to my house in Ahmedabad. Can we see that project? And we went to Jamnagar, and lo and behold, they asked me, can you take over the housing sector of the World Bank loan to Chennai, then Madras? So I went there, and I picked up an idea from my master's class thesis at Harvard, that people can't afford anything. They can't afford a house. What they can afford is a small plot, maybe 12 feet by 30 feet deep. They can take a 30-year loan, and they'll build their own house. So I came up with the idea called sites and services. And at Arambakam in Madras, we built there and 3 other sites, 15,000 sites were laid out. As a young man, at age 29 to 30, I could give 15,000 families access to shelter. And I think that was a turning point, because sites and services became, for the next 10 years, the World Bank's solution to housing for the poor.
So, I'm aware that there is a special place called CDS, and you founded that institute with great love. And a lot of your colleagues, a lot of your members in your office took inspiration from that project, and they are still there with you today because of that project. Would you like to talk about it?
Yes, see, when I started the School of Planning in Ahmedabad, we were doing physical planning. We were doing plans. We were doing sections through cities, and it was physical planning. But people like Barbara Ward influenced me, people at Harvard and MIT, that planning is social planning, it's social change, it's economic planning, it's giving people jobs and better lives, and it's also environmental planning. So instead of continuing with ACEPT, I thought, why don't I be another Doshi? I'll go to a different city and I'll start my own institute. And I learned a lot from Doshi and from people in Ahmedabad how to start an institute. So I started CDSA. And incidentally, one of the intelligent things I did was I asked Barbara Ward to be the first patron. Her name came first as one of the founders of CDSA. So we started that organization, and we wound up doing a lot of work for the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, United Nations, etc., and the Planning Commission in Delhi. So it was a unique institute in a sense. It was a research institute that did mainly work for development and taught a postgraduate course in development planning.
While we met you in Pune, I got an opportunity to visit that institute.
Okay, wonderful.
Let's show to our audience how that institute looks. Can we have the AV please, Mayank?
Myself, Rahul Sathe, director in CCBA Designs. Presently, where we are sitting in this very beautiful campus, it is a creation by Professor Christopher Benninger. This place, CDSA, it's called Center for Development Studies and Activities, is basically a place where students, they learn rural urban planning and sustainable development and planning. So this particular place, it is attached to the University of Pune, and it has been imparting education since the year 1984. When Professor Benninger, after forming the School of Planning in Ahmedabad, came to Pune and established CDSA. Over the years, this institute has been producing a lot of good students as well as doing a lot of good projects which have helped the community in a big way in places like Thane, Kalyan, Dombivli, as well as the Ratnagiri district. I think that it is one of his best projects in his life journey in the field of art, architecture and urban planning.
Do you feel nostalgic after?
See, this project, frankly, there's one error in that. It wasn't 1984, it was 1976 that I came from Ahmedabad to Pune. And of course, it's nostalgic because this is a project that put me on the map in a sense. Harish Mahindra was looking for an architect to do the United World College now. And he was seeing all kinds of big projects by Doshi, Kanvinde, Charles Cray, Uttam Jain, but they were monumental, large projects now. And somebody said, go and see that project. It's ground hovering. It uses local materials. It looks like it's from the region. So he invited me to design this college. And that is the United World College of India. So CDSA was a place where I was the director for 20 years. That's a long time. I had many, many students who studied under me there. Plus, it was the godfather of so many new projects that came up.
You've done some path-breaking projects not only in India but outside the country as well. Would you like to talk about those?
See, there are just a few. One of the first ones I did was in Indonesia, where I helped them start their rural development ministry. That was very interesting, but maybe more action-oriented was in Sri Lanka, where I prepared the plans for 6 of the state capitals. And I had a team of people from India doing those plans for quite some time. And then another very important thing I think was in Bhutan, where I did the capital plan, Thimphu. It was called a structure plan. And then they asked me to design the Supreme Court of Bhutan, which was funded by the government of India. And then I also built the National Ceremonial Plaza, a big plaza where they do their annual festivals, coronation of kings and things of that nature. So I have a lot of experience in Bhutan. And right now I'm doing a project in Burundi, the new parliament building complex there, which is going to come up shortly. Another exciting project is in a big city called Shanghai. In Shanghai, we have a 10-acre site where we're putting up a 1 million square foot brain research center. That's very exciting. And I think to be working in China, in Africa, India, Bhutan, and having worked in Indonesia, and also in Malaysia, where I worked on a regional development plan for Malaysia, and in Sri Lanka, all of these things make the practice of architecture richer and more interesting.
So practically you've covered half of the continent, which is such a amazing feat to achieve. Sir, you're very passionate about reading and writing as well. I personally am aware about a few books that you've written. Would you like to talk about those books with our,
See, my favorite book is a book which you should all have a copy. It's called Letters to a Young Architect. It was first published in 2011. By 2012, it came in the top 10 best-selling books in India. And it was there for 18 weeks and stopped on the 18th week. Why? Because we ran out of copies. So it was no longer in the top 10 best-selling. Now, this book in 2013 was translated into Chinese. Then in Dhaka, it was translated into Bangla. It's translated into Gujarati. Right now, a Marathi edition is coming out, a Hindi edition is coming out, and a Persian edition is coming out in Iran. So the book, incidentally, seems to be read more outside of India than in India, but I think we have a very big market in India as well. There's another book which was published in Milan, in Italy, called Christopher Benninger, An Architecture for Modern India. This book is very popular in Europe, and in Manhattan, Rizzoli is probably the most famous art and architecture publishing house in the world. They picked it up and published it in America. So it's got pictures of our work, which is very important. So it's shared, the image of our buildings have been widely shared through publication. And right now I'm writing a book called The Principles of Intelligent Urbanism. Another one is on the history of architecture. It's called The Story of Architecture, an Indian Narrative, where I want to try to write in a very friendly way a history of architecture in India. So I love reading. I have so many books in my library that Ram Prasad wants me to throw out half of them. So I have a big library, and I love to sit there and read and write and work.
दोस्तों, एक आर्किटेक्ट जब भी अपनी डिजाइन की शुरुआत करता है तो उसका फोकस होता है उस बिल्डिंग की नींव, और मैं आज CCBA डिजाइन्स की एक मजबूत नींव को यहां पे बुलाना चाहूंगा. May I now invite Mr. Ram Prasad Akiseti. Ram, thank you so much for being here with us today. Please have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, ये है राम प्रसाद अकीसेट्टी. He is the managing director at CCBA Designs. राम, स्वागत है आपका Legends of Design पे, and I really thank you for coming here. So राम, आप जहाँ तक मेरी नॉलेज है, you were pursuing MBBS. तो आप सर के साथ कैसे जुड़े, और how did you come into architecture from a medical profession?
Okay. Yeah, this is way back in 1993. I met Professor Christopher Benninger for the first time, accidentally. And that was a transformation that happened at that time. And today when I look back, I think it's a miracle for myself. In fact, there is something that I always believe that, like, you must listen to your heart. But I feel that, like, your soul is wiser than the heart. And I think that, like, somehow I was connected to the person sitting next to me in a soulful manner. So we were destined to meet. We met. My interest in medicine was there, but more so, I was always inclined towards design, art, and architecture right from my childhood. And there was a call that I had to take, and I just thought that I found the person and the purpose for my life by meeting Professor Christopher Benninger, and I followed him.
Lovely. So Ram, आपके initial days कैसे थे sir के साथ? Do you have any memories about those days?
Yeah, I have vivid memories of the times that I met Professor Christopher Benninger in 1993. I still call him Professor Benninger because I always addressed him that way, and I met him in the way that he was a professor at CDSA. When I was studying at Armed Forces Medical College, which is one of the most premier institutions of medicine in the country, I was studying to become an army doctor in the Indian Army. But having met him, my destiny changed, and I just thought that like this is the path I must take. And during the initial years, I was not aware of what to do in design, and we formed our company CCBA together in 1995. And I played the role of being a support at that time, doing all kind of odd jobs, whichever he would tell me or teach me. Because I was just a learning person, and a lot of it was self-discovery by trial and error. But many of those trial and errors today I could see as my subjects for graduation.
Okay.
In fact, I could say that like I'm yet to graduate because working under him is like a very tough thing, in the sense like he's a perfectionist. His role as a architect is very challenging. Our projects are challenging. Every project that we get is a story to tell. So I think life has been beautiful and no regrets. There are ups and downs. I think architecture specifically is a field where there is a famine and feast. There are times when you have famines, and then there are times when there is a feast. So it applies to this very, very well, in fact.
Okay. Sir, as you just referred, everyone has ups and downs in life. I do remember you also had faced some turbulence in your initial years. Would you like to share it with our audience?
Yeah. I think this was very clearly on 5th of September 1999 when I vividly remember that professor had a heart attack, and I had to rush him off to the nearest hospital. And I could almost see that there was a kind of a sense of losing. And then that sense of losing was so stuck in me that like I felt like this is the time that I must act brave, and I took over the responsibilities very, I think, with very, very boldly, I must say, with no preparation. I always feel that like somehow life puts you through such kind of examinations. These challenges actually make you more stronger. And overnight, you actually feel that you have learned everything, and now it's a time for the action. And I feel that like till today, whatever I'm doing it because of that like strength and courage that I got through it, through the times that he was in pain, and it helped me to gain my courage.
Okay. I have observed one thing very closely in your organization, that most of your key people are very tenured. They have stuck with the company in good and bad times. So what makes CCBA such a special place where people stick with you for such a long tenure?
Yeah. You see, for any company, for that matter, for any work, it's a team which is actually the center to its success. So I always felt that the human resources or the team members must be somebody that you very carefully select, who are going to be there for a long term. And today I can say with a certain kind of authority that that was the best investment that I have done in my life, having great human resources, because the team that I have today is fantastic. Many of them have stayed with us for 20 years, 25 years. My two very important people, engineer Rahul Sathe and architect Darayas Choksi, they've both been with me from the beginnings of the company, and even in our admin team and our architectural studio team, which includes Shivaji Karekar, Noel, and Rahul Deshmukh, and Sundar, Geeta, and then Bhargav. All these people have been with me for a very long time. And we can say that they are the backbone of our success, definitely. I sometimes come across people who say that there is a lot of attrition. I have the other way around. Actually, I have a lot of retention. And part of that is from the old school that Christopher comes from. And he believes in that, like, you have to kind of make your team as your family. I think that emotion must not be just like carried, but it should be translated into their thinking also, that we all have come together for a purpose, and that purpose here, it happens to be architecture.
Great.
And it's not just a job.
Yes, it is just not a job. So Ram, while I was meeting you all for this show, I have been fortunate enough to know your entire team very closely. We would like to show what your team and your close people have to say about you. Can we have the AV, please?
My association with Professor Benninger is very different. He is my teacher, my guide, and has helped me in my practically entire life. When I started, I was just 25 years old, and now I am 51. So half of my life I have spent at CCBA and with Professor Benninger. Professor Benninger is like a father to me, and he has guided me through my entire journey, holding my hands. So I'm very, very grateful to him. My respect towards him is a lot. At CCBA, we are like a family, and with Professor Benninger, it is a very different kind of a relationship where we all have passed through a journey, lots of ups and downs, but we all stood together for each other, and that's the beauty of this particular relationship. And I thank him for being a friend, a guide, as well as a father figure to me.
My name is Darius Choksi. I am the Director Studio in CCBA Designs Private Limited. I joined in 1999. By chance, I came up with a magazine. I liked reading a lot still, and I came up with a magazine where CDSA was featured, and I thought this is where I would like to work. The opportunities that I got here, I wouldn't have got anywhere else with that age or with that time. Christopher is a language freak. He knows many languages. He speaks in French when he wants to, because none of us speak French, and he can get away with it. He also speaks Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi. His vocabulary is huge. I would say it's about 50 words in each of these languages, but he knows when to use them and how to use them, and against who to use them. And it really comes up with hilarious situations where a person is sort of talking in high English with him, and Christopher replies back in a broken Gujarati, and words which sort of, now what do I answer back in? So it's his streak with languages is something which I think he's still developing. He'd learned a lot, but he knows when to say them, and he knows how to get answers out of people in these languages. So Christopher likes something new, like you give a baby's day out. There was this time when he was invited to Gulbarga to give a lecture. That lecture, maybe in 2014 or 15, took a complete new turn and took Christopher's interest in the history of the Deccan. The amount of books he bought, the amount of research he did, the amount of knowledge he gained was much more than any Indian that I knew of, or even I didn't know of. It's that small touch or spark that sort of gives the people who are associated with him also a parallel language to sort of learn and to speak. And that is found in very few people.
मेरा नाम सीताराम है सर. मैं बिहार से आया हूँ. जब ये इंडिया हाउस का काम कंस्ट्रक्शन का चालू था सर, मैं वॉचमैन का ड्यूटी करता था, गेट के पास होता था सर. तो साहब ने मेरे को बताया कि मेरे पास आओ, मेरे पास ऑफिस में काम करो। तो मैंने सर साहब के साथ जुड़ गया आज 15 साल से। बहुत गरीब फैमिली से हूँ सर। और जब मैं यहाँ पर इंडिया हाउस में आया तो सर मेरे गांव में घर नहीं था, तो साहब ने 8 लाख रुपया दिया, जिसमें एक बोध गया में मकान बनाया सर, एक सर तेलपा में मकान बनाया है। और मेरा 2 बच्चा है सर, एक सोनू कुमार, एक सिद्धार्थ है सर, एक लड़की भी है रूपा कुमारी। तो सोनू कुमार को सर चाटे स्कूल में पुणे में साहब पढ़ाए थे, और उसको आज पढ़ा लिखा के सर इन्फोसिस कंपनी में काम कर रहे हैं। मेरे लिए तो साहब भगवान है सर। और रूपा के लिए जो लड़की था, उसके लिए सर एक दिल्ली में साहब लड़का देखे थे, जो सर बिजली विभाग के SDO है। अभी सर वो उनको शादी करके सर चला दिया है बच्ची के। और एक मेरा छोटा लड़का सिद्धार्थ है, जो सर साहब के पास ही काम कर रहा है 5 साल से। और मेरे लिए सर बहुत बहुत बड़ा भगवान है सर दोनों साहब।
So this segment was powered by Tostem, framing the beauty of living. Sir, we also know a fact that you know and understand a lot of Indian languages, though in bits and pieces. But does it ever happen that he surprises people on the roads or in office by, giving them strange reverts in their local language?
Sure. If I'm in Ahmedabad, I say Kamcho. If I'm in Bengal, I say Kamanacho. And if I'm in Pune, I say Kaimantai. And people think, if you say a few words, they think you know the whole language. But actually, I've put all these together into a khichdi. It's sort of a India Bhasan.
So we have some young students sitting here right in front of us, and they are eagerly waiting for their turn to ask you a few interesting questions. Can we have a few questions from them?
Sure.
Yes. Who's going for the first question? Yes, please.
Hello Christopher sir. Hello Ram sir. I am Jash Shah from Thakur School of Architecture and Planning. My question to you is, amongst all the several projects you have done until now, I want you to list that one project which has a personal significance in your life.
I think that's a good question. I think the place I live is most significant, India House, because India House brings together a concept which actually comes out of the traditional Wada, the courtyard house of Maharashtra. So it's both traditional, it's modern, it's multifunctional. It's got my office, it's got an art gallery, which Ram Prasad is running. It's got our house, a swimming pool, a gym on the roof terrace. It's multifunctional, it's our life. Everybody who knows us has been to India House. So I think it's the most exciting and important project I ever did.
Thank you, sir. Who's going next?
Hello sir, I am Prachi Agarwal. So my question is, are there any considerations that you make or look up to before designing with respect to creating user experience in your project?
See, I always look at the site first. Pick up the soil, smell it. Put some, and see the wind, from which direction it comes. If possible, go see the sunrise and see the sunset. The site is where it's going to happen, and your building should be part of the site. So I think the most important phase of the architect's work is to understand the context, understand that sites have hard edges like a factory, the soft edges like a lake or mountains to look at, and know where to enter, and to love the site.
Thank you so much.
Next question. Who's going for it?
Hello sir, I am Priyanshi Mehta. How has India's diverse cultural practice influenced spatial organization of your project?
See, there's a concept which comes from South India. It's called agama. Now, if you look at the temple designs of the Pallavans and of the Cholas, now they all followed agama, which says that you should have a torna, an entrance. You've seen them in Samchi and in places, and you should have a pylon, a deep stamba, and those should be at the entrance, and then you should have an alignment with a sacred space. These are ideas that come out of Indian culture for the last 1,000 years. Now, so if you look at some of my designs, you'll see that these concepts are brought into the architecture, and they've structured my buildings. Having a circumambulation around the building as part of the design is very important in most of my schemes. So I've tried to integrate all of these concepts out of the Vedic literature into my designs. And I think it helps me structure them in a very Indian way.
Next question. Yeah.
Hello sir, Sanjana here. We got an opportunity to visit CDSA in our first year. It's a great climatically designed building. So I wanted to ask, what were the challenges you have faced during designing the CDSA and what was the aim behind that?
See, this is a project which doesn't depend on mechanical equipment. The walls facing south are 15 inches wide basalt stone, local stone. The roofs are made out of terracotta. And the east and west sit back in verandas and they have glass sliding doors, so you can open those doors and get cross ventilation. And if you see the slopes to the monsoon side, to the rain side, are steeper. So when the water hits the tiles, they go down faster and they're lighter on the other side. So adapting the architecture to the climate and to the site was the main challenge.
Chalo, who's going for the next question?
Hello sir, I am Rifat Sheikh in my final year of architecture. My question to you is, are there any priorities set or what are the criterias and the aspects that you follow in the process of design?
See, I always remember that architecture takes place on the ground. It takes place as pedestrians, as people walking. And I try to develop the design through, like, if you're planning a dance routine, you have a choreography. And the mood's changed. As the dance goes on, you change the mood. So my entrances are different. Then you move into another space, your mood changes. You move someplace else, the mood changes. And you can change moods by compressing people, keeping the ceilings low, and then boom, open up the ceiling and suddenly you're in a big space. So choreography, moving on the ground, being a pedestrian, walking through space. That's important.
We're having such a nice time with both of them, isn't it? Why don't we have a nice quiz round or a fun round with you both? Okay. Can I have those placards, please? Yes. So one is for you, sir, and one is for you, Ram. So we've written both the names on each side of the placard, and I'll ask you a few questions. You just have to show the names. So, architecture involves dealing with a lot of clients. Who is more diplomatic with clients?
You're not supposed to hide the face. Did you put my name?
No.
You showed my name, right? Okay.
You don't have to look at each other.
No, okay, fine. I can't remember. Did I put my name? Yeah. Okay, good. I am diplomatic most of the time.
Who finds it difficult to negotiate with clients? Who takes the final call on designs? Who wants to go to party after every project is completed? Who has a great sense of humor?
Oh, Christopher says to himself.
Who negotiates with clients on pricing?
Yeah.
Who is the boss at office? Who is more dominating?
That's why we sit on two different floors.
Who is more sensitive?
Both are.
So
Depending on the situation.
Okay,
Do like this.
Chalo, it was such a fabulous session. Sir, we are entering into the last leg of our conversation. One thing which recently happened, CEPT University awarded you the PhD for your contribution in architecture, which is probably for the first time that CEPT has given this honorary PhD to someone. Do you feel that life has come a full circle?
I think so, because I started my career in India at CEPT in 1968. And my whole career has been a mirror. CEPT was growing and I was growing. There's one funny thing that happened. When I came to start the School of Planning, I left the PhD program at MIT. And my father himself was a PhD and he was very upset about it. So I said, Dad, I promise you someday I will get a PhD. So actually, it's my father who was thanked by my getting a PhD.
So now we can call Sir Dr. Christopher Charles Benninger. Ram, sir has achieved so much and he's contributed to the development of this country. How do you want people of this country to remember him?
That's a very good question. See, I would like the people of this country, more so the students of architecture or young graduates of architecture, to remember that there is this one man who came on a journey from America to India after achieving the highest education at Harvard and MIT to make India as his home, because he felt this was the place which needed his professional contribution. In the times that we live today, many people want to go to the Western countries and developed countries for an easy, good life. I think when you can use your professional knowledge not just for the betterment of yourself but for the larger community, which is an example that Christopher has set, I would say that that would actually be more meaningful. And that is how I want the world to remember him, that he set the first journey.
And on an ending note, do you want to convey any message to our students and our audience here?
Yes, certainly. Nowadays, I very strongly feel about one statement which I keep repeating everywhere, and I would not lose this opportunity to repeat it again, is one thing what Professor Benninger has taught me, and I would like to repeat that, is earn with integrity, but spend with compassion. I'll repeat it once again. Earn with integrity and spend with compassion.
How about you, sir? Any message that you would like to give to our audience?
Work for humanity, work for the betterment of the world, and not for yourself.
Christopher, sir, Ram, it was such an amazing experience having you both over here on Legends of Design. I thank you once again for being here. But before we let you go, we would like to take a small opportunity to click a picture with you.
Sure.
Can I have the photo? Can I have the portrait, please? Sir. This photography moment was powered by Demo by Qtone, luxury windows and tiles for your homes. मेरा राम जी का और क्रिस्टोफर सर का तो पिक्चर निकल गया. आप लोगों को भी अगर इनके साथ कुछ पिक्चर्स और सेल्फीज निकालने तो जल्दी से आ जाओ. कम. तो ये थे हमारे प्यारे क्रिस्टोफर चार्ल्स बेनिंजर. क्रिस्टोफर सर को मिलने के बाद एक बात तो आज सीखने मिली कि अगर आप समाज के लिए कुछ बेहतर करना चाहो तो सिर्फ एक कदम उठाने की देर होती है और बाद में सारी दुनिया आपके साथ जुड़ जाती है. तो आज का कारवा बस यहीं तक था. वी वुड लाइक टू थैंक आवर टाइटल स्पॉन्सर टॉस्टेम विंडोज, आवर पावर्ड बाय स्पॉन्सर डीमोर बाय क्यूटोन एंड आवर एसोसिएट स्पॉन्सर वॉक्स. दोस्तों, मिलेंगे अगले हफ्ते. तब तक देखते रहिए लेजेंड्स ऑफ डिजाइन. शुक्रिया, शब्बा खैर, जय श्री कृष्ण. हाय, आई हैव एन अनाउंसमेंट. दोस्तों, आज के इस सोशल मीडिया के दौर में आइए हम आपको लेके चलते हैं उस जमाने में जहां पे कम्युनिकेशन होता था लेटर्स से. वॉक्स प्रेजेंट्स लेटर टू लेजेंड्स. आप अपने फेवरेट लेजेंड्स को इस एड्रेस पर खत लिखिए एंड वी विल इंश्योर कि आपके लेटर्स हम आपके फेवरेट लेजेंड्स तक पहुंचा देंगे.